You like comics? You bet we do. How about artwork? Yeah, we fucking love that too. You like movies? Whether they are old or new. How about streaming? We watch that fucking shit, it's true. But it's comic book art that gets us all fired up for the all-time great. So let's buckle up. Hear me out, I'ma tell you how it all goes down on the Blacklist Underground.
Welcome to the Blacklist Underground, brought to you by Ideal Organic CBD, starring our favorite artist, Zach Howard. Hi, Zach.
What's up?
Zach is creator of the hit series Wild Blue Yonder, as well as illustrator of The Cape, Hellboy, Judge Dredd, TMNT, and too many others to mention. I am your host, enthusiastic comic book aficionado, J.C. Washburn, and each episode we choose a comics legend to ink a drawing of. And this week's giant who's getting blacklisted is none other than Hellboy creator Mike Mignola. Our special guest artist this week is a comics legend and the artist's artist, whose work is regarded in the pantheon of all-time greats, Tony fucking Salmons.
Yeah!
Shucks. Thank you, folks.
Yeah! Oh, there we go.
Tony, this is Zach. Zach, this is Tony. You guys are familiar with each other's work, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Absolutely, Zach.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, well, when I heard it was going to be with you, I said, heck yeah, why not? Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You guys are philosophical soulmates when it comes to the comic book industry.
I'm sorry, Zach. I'm sorry, dude.
Mike Mignola, a guy you know well from way back in the day.
Forever.
Oh, yeah. We used to run around barefoot together at San Diego Con when it was at the El Cortez. Yeah.
And,
interesting.
And Zach knows him obviously from drawing Hellboy for a couple of years.
Yeah, I've worked with him a little here and there.
Nice stuff too.
I really appreciate it, Tony.
That was really, yeah. I mean, I thought you were European. The stuff looked pretty slick, man. Smart.
Best compliment I've gotten this week. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Zach, hit us up with our Patreon blacklisters.
All right. Thank you, Patreon people. We're buying Lamborghinis with all your money you're sending us, so I appreciate it. JC has two, and they're both pink, so thank you.
That's right.
No particular order. We'll burn through these. Our first Patreon ever, Patrick McNerney, Steve McKay, Kurt Kroll, who took he's taking a sabbatical from the Kroll series, I hear.
Oh, good. All right.
He's going to get a little time off.
Anything lined up? Is he going to do another series, or just
he's doing Cyclops bullying awareness seminars?
That sounds
good. Really nice guy. Olga Macia, our famous Spanish artist. Philip Jean-Pierre, Anthony Gigi, who's launching rockets for us right now into space as we speak. Andrew J. Brown, Bill DeGeest, Scott Boyan. He loves how I mispronounce his name. I got that fan mail. Thank you. Robert Berman, Danny Earls, the pro soccer player who's doing a book with Mike Rach and I right now. Max Machado of the Machado Black Belt series. Claire Meath, no one knows who she is. And Damon Smith. That's it, sir.
Thank you very much. And so this week we have the great pleasure of having Tony with us, Tony Salmons. And I mentioned in the intro that you are an artist's artist. And people inside the industry know what that means. It means that all of the great artists consider you to be the cream of the crop.
It means I'm dead in the business, yeah.
I'm joining you soon, sir.
I got no chance. You were there, brother. You were there. I hate to tell you.
You're on that mysterious list. It's like you. It's like Kevin Nolan. It's Michael Golden. It's Garcia Lopez. There's a short list of artists who all of the artists,
know right away, and they say something when you mention their name.
Yeah, probably have their
carry on.
Can I get their autograph?
Well, we had
that's quite a list.
Not long ago, we had on Dave Johnson, and he was showing us his art collection, and of course, he had many of your pages in there, along with his gold.
That's very kind. That's very sweet. Dave's great. He's a great guy too. Yeah.
Your originals are beautiful, man. What do you ink with?
I have a few things I really like to use. One of them is my favorite that I discovered some years ago, decades ago, actually, is the Gillette 1290 nib pen. I'm showing you one right here. I don't have a barrel right now, so it's taped to my pencil.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and it's 1290, and it's I'm dyslexic, so I might have said the number wrong. I think it's 1290. Anyway, yeah, it's got the little foot at the end of the point. If you can see that on camera, I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though. Are they steel or tin or?
It's steel, and it's they're still made out of a real small factory in England I don't know if it's the Gillette family in charge of it anymore, but it's the most wonderful. They're horrible to start out with because they have a huge reservoir, and
gets wet.
That gets wet. You have a big glop of ink right there. You have to be very careful with while you're doing the stuff at first. Once you get used to it, you allow for it. I've ruined a lot.
Man. That's my biggest problem with a nib is my lack of patience. I love using them, but I'll spend 2 hours doing beautiful speed lines and layering them in a curve. And then my dog will come up. I'll go to pet him, and I notice my other hand's just sitting right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it, yep. Yeah, you have to get used to that because you track it all over the page very easily. It leaves a ribbon of ink on the page.
Yeah. And then you can just tell everyone you meant to do that. You're trying out smart things.
Of course, I'm shaking it up. I'm getting more illustrative.
There we go. Being an artist.
So today, Zach is inking an unpublished image of Hellboy that was drawn by Mike Mignola maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
Ooh, wow.
From my favorite, I think visually the best story Mike ever drew, and that was The Wolves of St. Augustine.
Oh, yeah.
That's when the peak of the style of his that I liked, I think. It blended the deconstruction, animated feel of it mixed with, he still had enough detail in it to, engage me in the drawings a lot. So I always felt that was his pound for pound, in my opinion, his best.
Well, he certainly, that was great. I can't say I've seen all the stuff. I'm out of comics these days. I don't really buy too many comic books or see many of them. If there's a show up online, I don't really see it. But
you're not missing anything.
Yeah, mostly. I know. Unfortunately, but I don't know. I think it's getting better. There's guys are coming along with real aces now, man. They're just amazing. You look at it, it's like how am I going to stand out from that if I do something? Who's ever going to even notice? It's a little bit of the feeling that it's a wide ocean, and there's a lot of really terrific kids doing stuff now. I mean, it's actually a comic book renaissance right now for every kind of comic. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Because anybody can publish anything, right? And you can kind of, the sovereignty you can have as an actual illustrator and storyteller now is so, I don't think there's a better time in history, to be honest.
I don't either. I'm with you. I'm totally on board. It took a while for the business models to shape up so you could actually get support and stuff to do it. But it's spectacular. You go, there's nobody between you and the readers.
Your fans. Yeah.
You can do right there.
You can engage them on any level you want, you know?
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about that when you don't have that kind of that barely diaphanous membrane between you and the fans, and that's the publisher or a super shitty editor or just pick your poison. There's a million obstacles between great art and the readers, and I think that's shrinking and shrinking.
Oh, it is. That's really refreshing. That's really nice.
Yeah. The fewer editors on planet Earth is always a good thing. Kind of like that and lack of a carbon footprint or having trash in your lawn, all those things that suck in life.
Right.
Yeah. Get rid of the garbage. JC, what do you think? Talk some garbage for us.
Well, I agree with you. From everything I've heard, these editors are nothing but trouble, but you guys
nothing. There are good editors. I do want to stress that.
Not very many, but they're there.
They're unicorns, and when you find one, you grab onto them. Anyways, carry on.
But you guys sort of have an interesting intersection in the sense that Tony, your main connection with Mignola started when you guys were kids.
Yeah.
And whereas when Zach had his professional experience with Mike had sort of become an icon. Mike had created Hellboy, which is now probably, other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the largest non-Kirby, non-DC IP ever created.
Yeah.
So he has, when you knew him, he was still in diapers. And now,
and now he's back in diapers. So full circle.
Yeah, now we've all got full circle. But so sort of tell us about that. I mean, you guys were kind of just young bucks together.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty charming time, man, because it was the world was wide open, no internet or anything, but it was like we were all like full of piss and completely insecure about what we were doing. And
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great because we were just kids, we didn't think anything. We thought someday we'd like to work for Marvel or DC and stuff like that. And so, that stuff was all way in the future at that point. I mean, we started getting work pretty quickly. I mean, it was a talented bunch of kids. There were a whole bunch of them,
Was Arthur Adams in that bunch too?
Eventually, yeah. In the early 80s, the first time I met him in New York City when in the offices at Marvel. Yeah, he's one of the guys came along grew fantastically. And shortly after that, it seemed to generate an intense inrush of smaller fandom kind of like artists who started to come in, like Travis Charest or Charest. I don't know how you say that exactly, but he, those guys like that started to come in after us, and they were like, man, they were just, they took it out of the water. They really did. I mean, everybody has their baby pictures, right? You start out, you're not the best you're going to be, but some of those guys came along. Travis is like just killed it, man. Just luck coming and going.
He definitely had I share some of the same tools he uses, at least early on in my career, and that heavy pen rendering that he did, tech pen rendering.
Right.
There's like no one before or since. His storytelling aside, just his ability to illustrate is ridiculous.
It's phenomenal. It's so solid, and yet it's so fantastic in the sense of fantasy and like what the thing is supposed to be bigger than. I
agree.
Catching that element.
He does have that magic of like world building almost, and then putting those people in it. Which I think all the greats do. They find a truth in their art and expression to where they're not trying anymore. They're just executing.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. Because the stuff, it looks effortless from here, but it always does, right? When you watch somebody else draw, it's like, holy hell, how do you do that?
Yeah, how did they do that?
Yeah. I know. I mean, I look at my own stuff. I can't even see my own hand when I draw. It's like I'm so involved in the drawing. It's like I'm trying to watch my hand and everything screws up, But
that's interesting.
I can watch other people draw and I go, holy crap, that is just amazing. And it takes you back to that fanboy moment where you're like, first time you see somebody doing sketches or drawing.
I really like you saying that, because that's always the magic I'm always trying to find again is the, you draw some books and by like page 3, you're like, okay, enough Aquaman. And then other books like Hellboy or something, you can just draw the same damn character 37 times and there's a magic in it.
There is. That's a good character. Well designed, man. He's pretty classic.
It really is. I think he's the new kind of Batman for our my generation.
That's for me. So. Yeah, I'd rather see a Hellboy comic than a Batman comic myself. And I like a lot of the stuff that's being done with Batman too.
Yeah, there's always been some good writers that have left their mark on Batman, but the one thing I hate about except for early on my career, I always turned down things like Batman is because what am I really going to do? You're just kind of retreading a tire that's with new social or a new social thrust, whatever's going on in society at that moment. But it just, to me, it always feels like a retread tire where Hellboy sucks me in. I don't know if it's just because Batman's a little fucked out for me, just it's old hat, because he is a brilliant character. Just that somewhere along the line, I just got really bored.
Everybody's drawing him, so it's like, you don't.
Yeah, you're one of 10,000 guys that. I'm the best Batman artist this week. Neat.
Yeah.
I'll be remembered for a whole week.
The new kid in town, kind of thing. Yeah, next week there'll be a new kid. Yeah.
Exactly. or some old bad motherfucker jumping in and showing everybody what's up. There's always going to be somebody, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've known people that have spent half their damn career drawing Batman and been perfectly happy. So I'm not trying to take away from people's fun. It just bores the living shit out of me.
Well, that's the weird. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. We're going to be talking over a lot. Okay. One, because I'm an idiot, and two, got a lot to say, or a lot of questions for you as well. But I just, I get tired I get bored so easily drawing crap. So that's why I don't do like long runs on books or something, just because I can't, even my own properties, after a while, I'm like, I can't draw a P38 one more time. I've already done it 100 times.
All right.
Yeah. And that's always been a struggle in my career. Have you ever had issues like that? Were you able to go zen and turn it off, or?
No, never. It's always, every time I draw, it's like the first time I've ever drawn anything, I'm scared to death every time I sit down at the drawing board, because I want to make sure, if I suck, I don't suck too bad.
You passable suck?
Yeah. Passable suck is what you get a lot of times, Yeah. At least I get it done.
This is a commercial industry, and philosophically, that took me a long time to learn.
Yeah,
there's going to be warts.
It does. Well, it turns very differently. I mean, I used to drawing in my sketchbooks and occasional test pages and stuff that I did for myself. And then the first thing I learned when I started getting scripts was how much tiny drawing there is to do. I got to do these little tiny figures. Their heads are smaller than a Lincoln penny.
Yeah.
And you got to make the likeness and expression and everything else. It was really trying.
Go ahead. Were you good at likenesses?
I could occasionally. I'm better now. I'm way better. When I was starting out, no, it was pretty rough because I wasn't really interested. People used to always ask me, "Draw my kid," draw. You draw me. Girls always say that first thing after, "You draw me."
That's how JC exact voice. That's how I met him. He introduced me. Can you draw me? Please draw me, sir.
Can you draw me in my wig? Somebody put on my wig.
Yeah, that's always the most frustrating thing when you have a skill in art. People are like, "Hey, draw this," like you're out of ideas or something.
Yeah, right. All I'm doing is waiting for suggestions. Yeah.
Yeah, all I need is some dude asking me to draw his hockey fan art or some crap like that.
Right. Or somebody wanted me to draw their Keyshounds, or whatever. It's like, what do you mean? Get a photo of a Keyshound. It looks just like yours. If you're gonna get the tattoo. If you're gonna get the tattoo, just find some good photos of them.
That's probably smarter in the end as far as tattoos go. But yeah, it's just funny how people act like, "Oh, you have this neat skill, you should do it for me." So now I always tell people like, can you draw this for me? I'm like, sure. I just need you to wash and wax my car and then mow the lawn while I do it.
That's a good answer. That's a perfect answer.
It's fucking work, you shitheads.
I know they think because when they relax or recreate their dates, say, "Hey, let's draw." They think it's fun. And it is, but when you're doing it this much, it's a lot to do a comic book page, man. It's a lot.
I agree.
These guys don't know it because they've never done it, and they never spend any time trying to learn how to do it.
Well, I agree. No, yeah. I agree. There's that lack of people that were, took their own agency into their hands and fulfilled their dreams instead of just having a hobby and pretending they're going to do something with their life. It's hard for, I think, those two types of people to communicate, even if there's goodwill involved, because it's almost like you're different species. Yeah. And their lives are so very different. They cannot possibly understand, like, heck, you were there too. How many 14-hour days do you have? It's like 3 a.m. and you see, like the paper boy out and stuff, and you haven't slept in 3 days, and you're trying to get this book out, and then the colorist is, on crack or something, and, you're like, what is that? And, it's just like you work so hard, and then all you get is people bitching at you. That's what wore me down the most.
That'll do it. It's not the work, it's the business, man. Talking to the guys that, in the offices and stuff, because most of them are fucking clueless about comics. I mean, they don't even know the history.
Truly. They don't even want to be like editors. They're usually failed writers, and they're just waiting, you know, for the chance to write or whatever.
Yeah. Or they're looking for television or movie gigs, and this is just a stepping stone for them. So they don't really give a fuck about it, you know.
Exactly. They're like translating their stupid screenplay. Oh, this is going to be great. You should draw it.
Been bouncing around Hollywood for 10 years, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like the technology it's based on is already old hat by the time people are looking at it. And, yeah, it's interesting how writers think, and this isn't everybody, obviously, I have good relationships with writers too, but I often find, at least via email, they all feel like you owe them to draw their story. And that's what the agency always pisses me off.
Always that way. It's always that way. They think, oh, this lucky old bum cartoonist got the chance to draw my wonderful story, you know, and make it turn it into a comic.
Yeah, Captain Backup. Thank you for drawing it. So yeah, I just learned once I found the writer I really, you know, that you got that synergy, I just don't even work with anybody else now.
That's the way to do it. There's a couple of guys I would work with again anytime they wanted to do it, you know. I mean, some of them I've never even worked with, but I mean, if I ever got the shot.
But they got the voice you think you could use to really excel in.
The stuff is smart. It's dramatically deep. And then they work with some of the best guys too. One of the guys I've always wanted to work with. It's a little scary for me because I've just loved the shit since the underground. Is Jan. He works with Corbin.
Yes.
Strange. Yeah. I was like, man, that stuff. I mean, he wrote some of the best Encounter at War and a whole bunch of cool stuff. Corbin illustrated, but Corbin was illustrating it too. That was like a dynamic mixture. Those guys.
Yeah. What an original voice, Corbin, huh?
We just did Corbin last week.
Oh, really? Oh, that must have been tricky because I study Corbin still. I was studying him today, as a matter of fact. I was looking over some stuff. Okay. And it's just like he never did anything that was half-assed. He was completely committed to everything he did. It's impressive.
I agree.
Characters, backgrounds, sequential stuff, huge images, and his textures, and he was remarkable on every level. He's like pretty singular in the whole history of comics, man. That guy.
I agree with that. He's one of a kind, right?
Yep.
Kind of like Bob Dylan. You just there's no one comparable.
Yeah, you can't put
whether you like him or not. There's just no one comparable.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't put Corbin in a category. He's just too much. I mean,
not really. And it was really intimidating having to follow him on Hellboy for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
I had to. My job was basically to draw his sequel, so I had to kind of harness Mignola and Corbin and put him in a story that felt like it was a continuation, but being the asshole that I am, I had to do it in a way that made me happy too, you know?
Sure, absolutely. And Corbin would have wanted it that way. You know, he was a nice guy from what I hear. Never met him, unfortunately. I never met him.
From interviews, it sounds like we had a lot of the same philosophical thrust. Not that I'm anywhere near his category, but that's why I kind of felt like there's a kinship when I was drawing Hellboy, and all the nervousness kind of went away then. You know,
isn't that cool? I like when that happens because it makes me, you know, because I think of the guys I've met, and the first times I've met Steranko and different people like that, and hung out with them for a little while. It's like it turns normal very quickly because they really are artists and students of the form and stuff in very serious fashion. Plus, they have a playfulness about them. A lot of them, you know,
a lot of them do. The good ones that figure it out are usually very amiable, huh?
Yeah, the ones that I've met have been really good. Neil's been around. Neil Adams has been around forever. He's the first guy I really spent any time with, you know, who's like a name, you know, famous.
Yeah.
And we used to hang around back in the 70s. He started in 76 first times, and then the other times I went to New York, we wound up hanging out at Continuity too. And he was always open door, man. You could walk in and hang out with Neil anytime. He was engaging. Awesome. Yeah, he was terrific.
That must have been amazing because back in the day when it came to figure rendering, holy shit, was there anybody comparable in the 70s?
Oh, he absolutely nobody. And he absolutely changed my concept of comics, man. I watched him draw. I was lucky enough to watch him draw. He looked at my stuff one time. He was complimentary, you know, and stuff like, because he was tough. He was like dealing with a Marine DI.
Still is tough. He'll make children cry in reviews.
Oh, I saw a guy walk away crying one time.
Yeah. So have I. I used to.
God.
Where was it?
Just a friend of mine. It wasn't me.
Some guy I know.
Some guy I know. Yeah.
He cries a lot. That guy.
Allergies. He's got allergies. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's bad this time of year. Especially at conventions. God, the allergies are really bad near Neil Adams' booth. I don't know what's going on this year.
He's got 2 boxes of tissue on his table for,
As you come in and as you leave, you get Kleenex.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh man, it's rough. I mean, it was like that for me back. I mean, my introduction to comics was rough. God, man, because we were so hard on each other, and a lot of those guys wound up dropping out, but some of us were stupid, stuck around, and
that's really all it is, isn't it? Is just who can persevere, right?
That's what Woody Allen says. 95% of show business is just showing up for the job. You can get in anywhere.
Yeah, he said the same thing about his sex life.
Oh yeah, there you go. He's yeah.
Yeah, he has great daughter dating advice.
Yeah. You guys had to go there.
So, like, how to watch basketball with them when they're children, and then as they're adults. You don't even have to buy an extra seat.
Right.
So bad.
You just change the name on it to your name, and then, or no, she would have his name. You don't even have to change your the marriage license. Nothing. Nothing. This is easy. Okay, now I'm back into daughter dating. Mark that down, JC.
Well, the other interesting thing about Mignola, going back to kind of the beginning, when Tony was hanging out with him, was that he just sort of originally his aspiration was to just be sort of a cog. They wanted him to be an inker, and that was sort of where he was comfortable. And I think it was, of course, he became a really prolific and well-known and beloved.
Wasn't it Archie, though, or somebody that told him to stop drawing? He sucked or ink, and he had to start penciling or something I don't know. He told me a story back in like 2002.
That doesn't sound like something Archie would say. Archie was a sweetheart, and he was. Really
it wasn't Archie. It was somebody just said you don't have it as penciling. It was somebody big, and I can't remember who.
If you go to the portfolio review lines of these cons, if you know the offices, they pick the lowest guy they can find.
Yeah, you go do the
girl to hire you. Yeah, I mean, I watched the guy go. It was 2 people at one table. I think it was DC guys. And the first guy told him he needs to work on his anatomy, and the next guy told him your anatomy is great. You need to work on your storytelling. And it's like the guy went away completely, his head spinning because he thought he was talking to somebody that could hire him.
Yeah, that's the best advice. Oh, sorry.
Meanwhile, this guy's in an office about the size of a phone booth, and he shares it with the boiler in the office building.
Exactly, and he wishes he worked for People magazine or something.
Yeah, he doesn't understand the comic thing at all. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's always been comic books. You're kind of mixed with genius with these gatekeepers that are myopic, and they can't even speak the same language as you.
Well, they don't even know comics. Go ahead. I'll tell you.
No, go. You're the guest. People hear my shit all the time. Let's go, sir.
Okay, cool. I have to check in on more of you guys' episodes, man. It sounds great. But I was dealing with some newbie. He was an assistant editor. These guys happen in all the time. They're not particularly looking for a comic book job. I don't know where they solicit these guys from for work.
I don't know either. They just pick them up at like off the campus of Cal or something like that when they can't get hired somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyways, carry on, sir.
And they certainly shouldn't be in comics, but this guy's in a position to hire me,
Yeah.
Or edit me even. God forbid I get the job.
Yeesh.
And yeah, I know. And like we're making small talk while he's finalizing this artwork return, which is a couple years old and typical of the companies. But he said, we were talking, and Eisner came up, and I said, wow, Eisner was cool, this and that. And he's like, I don't really know much about Eisner. I've never read any Eisner. Here's this guy's working. Like, how are you going to look at my stuff or any other guy that comes in here that's not straight superheroes and not know Eisner? He probably votes in the Eisners already,
Isn't that embarrassing? The guy that basically changed design and storytelling in comic books forever.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, and you deal with this cretinous mindset all the time.
It's just myopic, man. It's infuriating. Or like I'm working with Paramount right now, and it's like you can always tell when like the new art director comes in. You just got to start over again with like, okay, jump through hoops again. I'm not a 22-year professional that's being hired to improve your sales at all. I'm just some chump that needs some 22-year-old straight out of college, or however old, 20 nothing, to tell me, that Picard's fingernail is too long.
Oh yeah. Oh God. So what you're working on Star Trek stuff?
Yeah, really cool job. Honestly, they're pretty easy. They're just inconsistent. And it's just, I think, when you work on those IPs that are for television and stuff, they're just not they don't know what they're looking at with like a comic book thumbnail versus like an entire studio putting out like variations of something. They're like, okay, I like this, that, and combine them. They forget it. You're just one human being is more than anything I notice about working with film and TV. You're like, there's only so many hours in a day, people. I
know. They don't think of that though. They don't see the hours you spend putting that shit together for them, and then they just bounce it.
And then I always hated that about editors because they'd like, okay, even if it's their mistake, you're working that weekend, and then they're posting pictures online of them like kayaking, and I'm in my basement at 3 a.m. trying to save their job for them, and I get bitter.
They're off doing. I just get pissed off because it never ends. It's always that way, And it's like they're off, like at a comic book convention. Well, this is when Stan was alive when I made this comparison. They're off. They've. Oh, this is a whole story, but I'll make it brief. A writer says. No,
carry on. This is a long form show, sir. Make the story as fun as possible.
I should have brought popcorn. Yeah. Anyway, a writer types down, a crowd gathers, right? And he's finished with that shot. And then I have to come up with who's in the shot, why are they in the shot, how are they dressed, what period of time is it, where's the lighting, staging, the whole thing, acting. Yeah. I'm wearing 18 hats while I'm doing this stuff. And they're finished and they fly off to a convention in Colorado, emceed by, some old comic book do nothing. And and they, they're telling people how to do a comic book, and I'm doing the comic book. He typed the crowd gathers.
That's always the best. World explodes with 1 million jets flying in the air. And you're like, and on each pilot, there's a ring on their left finger that glows, and then on a glint in their eye, and then on this, you're like, oh, what? It's like you can't do that. Okay.
Because in their head, they're seeing a movie. And I think what we're talking about here is like, it's a new word. I don't know if it's official, but it fits perfectly. It's called aphantasia. Aphantasia.
Cool. What is that?
Yeah, it fits. It's people who can't visualize in their mind. It's actually an official state of mind. I mean, that's the way they describe it.
I'm stealing that, sir.
Yeah, steal it. It's because it's those are most editors you deal with. Well, that's why you get an elevator pitch. You have to say it's like Brady Bunch meets Apocalypse Now, or whatever.
You got to do that like play school, like poo poo pee pee explanations, like
exactly. These guys,
whatever. Carry on.
I've talked with other people about this, and they say, "Hey, I've got that." I mean, they're unashamed, but they're not in comics. They're other things, doing other trades. But you deal with these guys all the time in the editor level, and they do not know the anatomy of a comic book page. And they don't have the concept of what it takes to make one or time it or paste it. You talk about the Earth blowing up, and you can see the glass ring. They call this stuff in, and they want to see all this stuff. You got one page to do it on, and you need a money shot every couple of pages. Make sure the stuff, shit keeps working. And I didn't do this job. I read it in somebody else's script. There was a guy reading a newspaper, right? You're supposed to look over his shoulder and see what he's reading in the paper, right? And you're supposed to look behind him, but on a building above him is a guy looking down on him. You have to get all of this in one shot. I mean, the editor okayed that. I mean, I don't know how the guy worked it out. I never saw the final, but it's like, what the hell, man? These guys don't have any concept of the anatomy of a comic book page. They don't know.
I agree.
And the more setup that they use, the less space there is for anything. It looks cool on the page. So like you would get these. I did get this script one time, and it was all this like it was a guy on another planet, and he's visiting this mysterious character, and the guy lives in this, of course, incredible space age thing, and he's got a museum in his house. And the last panel was I was supposed to show all this alien armor and tapestries and weapons and shit on the wall. And by the time I got finished drawing the other shit the guy wanted on the page, I had like a 4x5 panel to do it in, plus word balloon.
So you're drawing like Thumbelina-sized drawings and stuff like that?
Again, I got a jeweler's loop on trying to reach down in there and draw that stuff. Crazy.
And then all you do is get yelled at for being late. And you're like, God, I only put 70 hours in this week, editor. Thank you.
Oh, brother, don't get me started on that again. That's a huge difference. I have writers I like a lot, but there's a lot of writers that, I would never deal with at all because the stuff isn't good enough. I mean, Michael Moore, Jim Kruger, there's a lot of guys I'd love to work with. I mean, a lot of guys.
If you see Jim Kruger, tell him my paycheck in the mail from 20 years ago still hasn't gotten here.
Uh-oh. What is that from? Marvel?
Clockmaker.
Oh, Clockmaker.
I did 4 issues of it, and somehow even though it was the #2 selling book for the Indie Creator series or whatever for Image back in the day, somehow it just wasn't making money.
Huh. Not unusual
funny
for the
that.
indie market. It's not unusual for the indie market. I could tell you stories there.
Well, I know the sales at the time, so that's a little reason. I'm not trying to shit on your buddy, dude. He just owes me money.
It's okay. All right. Well, I'm sure.
No, he can write, can't he?
Hey, I owe him money too, so
Well, good. Just send me a check, and we'll just say it's from Jim Kruger. But to that point, we all have, and Jim's an amazing talent. I don't want to take that away from him.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I work with Jim in a minute.
I didn't mean that. But as far as his skill is concerned, I only work with one writer now as well. It's the same guy I did Wild Blue Yonder with. It's just we have that synergy. He's very cinematic in how he writes. And he doesn't chase the dragon. He's not trying to do what's popular at the time. He has a true vision and it just kind of works for me. So I'm just sticking with that. But, as you know, you get every writer on earth writing you. I can't even get out of my damn inbox in the morning or messages on Messenger from screenwriter X and, director Y. And, they swept the floor at PBS for 6 months and now they're a producer.
It goes fast because of the original content. All these like Amazon and all these. I mean, Amazon was some sort of used shit online, Yeah,
it's just books, man.
Now they have original content,
Exactly.
And everybody's doing that. I don't know who the hell else is doing it. Hostess Cupcakes. I don't know who's doing fucking, who's doing every used car dealership has got shit in the works somewhere.
It pretty much seems like it, doesn't it?
It's all over the place, but it eats up a lot of material, and things are, and they sweep in a lot of people who are not ready. They're just not ready, or if they
that
ever will
is for certain, right?
Yeah,
it's just filling a hole in the factory floor line. Keep putting spindles in boxes, assholes.
And it's a new name that nobody can fuck with yet, and it's some of that where these guys.
That's definitely part of it too. And it's interesting though, like fans, the level of lack of understanding of what they know goes on in the industry too, because it's not their fault. But they don't quite understand the mantle of responsibility it takes for an artist to undertake. They're like, well, artist X, say like Ryan Otley can do a monthly. Well, I can, asshole, because it would look like chicken scratch and I have no interest in making fast food.
I've done it. It's just like that. Yeah.
I've gotten close, and it's just put the spindle in the box, go. Who gives a shit what Nightwing looks like? Just get it done, get it to the printer, and it's just it really fucked me up for a long time because here I had this vision as an artist, storyteller, a love of the medium, and then I was just in a room with a bunch of queefs hammering checks. And I was the asshole because I wanted to make something lasting, you know? And that really irked me. And it took a long time for me to learn how to operate and make myself happy, and still make a living and also not burn bridges with everyone, you know?
Well, it's easy to do. Those bridges are made out of popsicle sticks, man. As far as I can
Yeah, they're artists and creatives. That thin ass skin, huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that. There's fratricide that way, but then there's also fratricide. There's a lot of pencil envy in this business. Not all of it's from artists. You know, there's editors who just like, they really can't do comics. They will never do a comic book. And, you know, they hire contractors like us to like draw their comic books for them. And then they stick their name on it, say they edited it. When meanwhile, the guy never even read the scripts, you know, he wasn't paying attention to anything that came in.
That literally happened to me on my last Joe Hill book. Chris Ryle left IDW, and before I got some chump editing me, and it didn't matter. I didn't give a shit. I'm working with Joe. We'll do what we want. But I asked him to get something changed from the writer because it didn't work or whatever. And he is like, "What do you mean?" And I explained it to him. He's like, "Sorry, I didn't read the script." You're the fucking editor, and we're on issue 3 of the book, and you haven't read the script. You know, it's like, and that's just kind of comics, man. Story.
That's Excuse me? They hire numbskulls, man, and they hire numbskulls, and they promote numbskulls. You know,
they really do.
They hire the worst and promote them above everybody else. That's my evidence. I'll tell you, I stand behind it. I try not to be too critical because, you know, if I couldn't draw a comic book, I'd probably still want a job in comic books if I could get one. You know, it's fun.
I agree.
You're around.
It's
really
like
cool,
if you're not
really cool
6'4" and you want to be an NBA player, well, you can still work at the stadium or for the team or something like that, and it's still pretty cool.
Right.
But what I worry about in comics, a lot of those people, like you say, they're just in a holding line until they get what they really want. And they're just going to make, this is my dream, asshole. What are you doing screwing with me? You don't know anything. Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. You know, but they get that. I don't know. I'm pretty bitter with the industry. I think it's set up for a bunch of fucking losers to stroke each other in front of each other, and there's not a lot of creation happening in this stunningly wonderful fucking medium limitless medium that is comic books.
Fantastic.
Tony's actually witnessed that in hotel rooms at various.
I thought we were going to talk about that.
Are we allowed to talk about it?
That exact scenario Tony has witnessed.
I'm joking. Go ahead. We can talk about anything. Go ahead.
Carry on, JC. Bring this shit up. Go. You can't tease me like this.
Oh, well, all I know is that Tony's been to, I think it was the San Diego Comic-Con, and a couple of our favorite sacred cows, so to speak, were using their clout at Comic-Con to find carnal pleasures in places that no man should roam.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. That's always been going on. There was back in my day, back in the 70s, there were about 6 girls that showed up at most conventions that you knew you could get laid with, you know, and they made the rounds. It was, you know, they're very sweet girls. I'm glad I never partook, but
they still exist. Trust me.
They're probably still. Yeah, I would bet.
There's always groupies when something's popular. Like when I did Hellboy, suddenly I literally got nudes in my messenger. And then when I'm not doing Hellboy 1-to-1, it was an animator out of LA. But you do get a lot of young, like I noticed, I can see why, and this is not an excuse, but a lot of these dipshit older artists start getting in trouble with younger girls because say you're just some fucking older guy that was an introvert his whole life, and now some 24-year-old, you know, girl straight out of college or whatever is talking to you. I can see why a lot of these guys, when they get a little clout, like to use it because they never got their dicks touched when they were younger.
Right.
And they can kind of feel like a god for a moment, you know, some hot 20-nothing girl, but that's got to end. This industry gets so gross with that. It's
I can only imagine, man, because I know it's bigger than ever because the Hollywood connection now, which is accursed and blasphemous, but
or if you have X amount of followers online, or if our creator X calls you out online, suddenly you're getting all sorts of weird fandom, you know, that, and I had to, oddly enough, my assistant is who helped me out with that because I I was having trouble figuring out who's genuine and who's not on that, because I'll help anyone. If you need help, I'll help you. But a lot of them have ulterior motives, shall we say? And
you gotta watch
it's abused both ways, though. An older artist is way more responsible for what they do to younger artists. That being said, there's people just certain goals, they're just groupies, or they're gonna find a way in one way or the other, and they just use what they have. And JC, how many guys did you have to blow?
17.
Okay, good. So that's not a bad number.
No, I was blindfolded. It was as though it was just one guy.
You're in Rod Stewart territory.
Yeah.
Oh, well, don't bring up Rod Stewart around him. That was a tough night.
I've got a Rod Stewart poster right next to my Richard Gere poster.
It's called the Gerbil series.
My two favorite guys.
How, before the internet, did everybody learn that Richard or Gere or whatever had a gerbil in his butt?
That's a good question.
Because this is before the internet, and there's not one human alive that doesn't know the Richard Gere story.
The legend has it that it was spread by Sylvester Stallone. Because they had a little they had a disagreement on a film, what, that Green Bush film, something.
Green Bush.
No, gosh.
I don't know. You just get in the corner.
Knights of Green Bush. I can't remember. I'll have to check it out. But anyway, they were on a movie together, and they didn't get along. They got into a fist fight. The next thing you know, Richard Gere had gerbils up his asshole.
I don't know. I was punching him, and a gerbil fell out of his butt. It just came right out of his butt.
Made him cough.
He coughed out butt gerbils. I'll know. You just get in the box here.
Yeah, about that Rod Stewart story. That story's been around about Mick Jagger and a couple other guys too. I think it's just some kind of spiteful.
Even the New Kids on the Block. I remember when I was younger, they're like, "Oh, he had to get rushed to the emergency room because he had 13 gallons of jizz in his stomach or something like that." And I'm like, how do all these stories get around? My favorite is if you ever meet somebody from Boston, they've beaten somebody up from the New Kids on the Block. That's my favorite thing. Does everybody in Boston beat up the New Kids on the Block? Hey, remember Johnny? I punched him in his stupid mouth when we were in the 7th grade.
Here we go. Richard Gere and Stallone were in the Lords of Flatbush together. And
really? I didn't know Gere was in that.
Yeah. Well, one of them left because of the fight, so only one of them ended up on screen.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Gere seems to be he's a little bit of a wild card, but I can't imagine going up against Stallone, especially when Stallone was young. Stallone's not
and he knows how to box a little.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's not completely foreign to boxing, is what I'm saying. And anybody that knows a little bit of pugilism against people that know none, it usually doesn't go well.
Yeah, and Gere, I'm not assuaging anything about him. I'm not saying anything about him now, insinuating anything, but it looks like he would need the right shoes to get in a fist fight. So you have to go home and change first.
Does my hair look good?
He'd have to get his American Gigolo, outfit out.
Right.
Get Julia Roberts cheering for him in the side.
Well, Tony got cold cocked by Buzz at a convention.
Buzz Aw, yeah.
What happened there, Tony?
I'm sure that story. Buzz is a good dude. He I don't know. There was a misunderstanding early on in our relationship, but it's hard to talk about because I don't want to talk about Buzz's business because it wasn't bad.
It's okay. Just say what you can say, man.
We to cook a huge meal, and a bunch of us were invited. And as it drew close, there was not really a reminder on the phone or anything. And none of these other guys were gone. So I thought, well, I don't know, because I just met him. And, I gave him a real insult. I got to say it was because I just didn't show up. And then he called up at the time he had the food ready. He says, what the hell are you guys? And I was like, oh man, Buzz, I don't know. These guys, everybody seemed to, I thought we were all invited and, it didn't really happen. Nobody told me and it wasn't refreshed in my memory. So, he's a very traditional character. He's very, he's very like, what's the word? Honorable. And like, he's Burmese and he spent time in Burma and stuff. He's not Burmese American. Yeah. And he was insulted, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was like, I don't know. My mind was someplace else because everybody else didn't go either. But I got in trouble for it. So I think that was one thing that pissed him off, which I should have apologized to him for, fixed it or whatever. So that I regard that as my fault. And then
life's about learning, right?
Life's about learning. I learned good. It was real funny because I went to this little con that I didn't even want to go to. Friends convinced me to go. It was just a weekend. I didn't even stay for the whole weekend. And I was drunk, and I came back to the hotel. I mean, I wasn't real drunk, but I saw Buzz. He was in the next hotel in a circular drive with this girl, beautiful young lady, and I ran over to him and said, "Hey, Buzz, what?" Bang! And that's all I got out. He knocked me out right there, and then I woke up. With a cop. I was sitting on a low wall, and the cop was shaking me awake, and I saw his bad mustache first, and then I saw him, and then realized he had done it right in front of about 4 cop cars that were there for something else. Yeah, and they wanted me to press charges. Buzz is already over there in bracelets. So giving me his war face, and I was like, "Oh boy!" From by this point, we're still separated by, I don't know, 25 yards or something. I don't know, about 25, about 40, 50 feet. Let's put it that way. Because I'd make him out, and I was like, "What the hell?" Because I was already drunk. And then his girlfriend he was in bracelets, and his girlfriend was next to him, like folding her hands like prayer and saying, "Please don't press charges." Please, I could tell what she was doing. And I don't call cops or press charges anyway unless it's something really bad. And that was just a big deal. I said, "Okay, now it's just like, fuck down that call press charges." And the cop was saying, "Press charges, the guy assaulted you." He just told me to shut up, and that's good enough. So,
he actually owns a ton of your artwork.
Yeah, I am flattered by that. I know. He says really unflattering things about me when he posts it online. Still, he doesn't give up.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
He worked. He was with Neil Adams forever. He was over at Continuity for 1,000,000 years.
Oh, really? Well, he's a fine craftsman, and he's good at what he does, and he's good with the fans. The fans love him. He's got a huge fan base that he works. So.
Yeah, I think he showed up in was it Mallrats or one of those movies?
Was it Mallrats?
I think so. I think it was the famous line where he's talking about being an inker.
Oh, when the fans were like coming up and mocking the actor or whatever, he was in that scene, wasn't he?
And it was something about the whole thing. Are inkers just tracers, kind of?
Yeah.
Oh no,
I'm not a tracer, and he's strangling the guy.
I think that was Buzz, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he was in the Hollywood set for a while. He palled around with Mickey Rourke and some other people and stuff. He was involved in that whole scene, which is no fun for me as far as I'm concerned. But
hanging out with actors, I'd rather shit blood from my eyes. Holy shit! Is there a worse group of humans to hang out with?
Oh man, I have a real sort of a grudging. Not begrudging, but you got to watch actors because they want the first line, they want the best line, and they want the last line in the scene every time. And they're like that when they're not on stage. If you're just having dinner with them, they're all one-upping with each other, which is really fascinating up to a point. You feel like a sled dog, and you're just like worn out, and you want to quit, and nobody else does.
That's kind of how I am. I'm just like, okay, we're talking about you again.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You can't even talk about trees or anything, any subject that doesn't involve them.
Yeah, and then the old joke is, enough about me, let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, actors are necessary, and there's brilliant actors out there. But just in general, when anybody ever says there's an actor involved, I just vacate. You can talk to my agent. You guys speak the same stupid language.
I don't blame you because there's a lot of people who shouldn't be acting either. It's like I always estimate artists of any kind, especially comic book artists, by how many good plumbers do I know, or contractors, or guys who do regular stuff like that. Like, you have to really look to find one that's worth the fucking trouble. You're trying to get the money out of them. So artists do it the same way. They make everybody, all their friends, telling, "Hey, you can draw," or it's just like somebody saying,
"Yeah, you're the best out of that group of friends," and somewhere in Indiana, like it effing matters.
Exactly right. So now the avenues are clogged up with these guys trying to get into comics, and the old stand-up comics have said that they're like, they're never going to stand up because your friends think you're funny, Wait till you're in front of an
Yeah.
audience. You have to eat really crow, in front of a real cold audience, and then if you're.
You got to eat shit for years, right?
Oh man! Oh
It
god!
takes years to get good at anything worth a shit, and people forget about that. It's the journey that makes the artist, not some inherent decision that they made. It's the work and the path that they followed, and that's where the art is. And people always try to take a shortcut, and you forget to be an artist then.
Yeah, well, some people
you just copy. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just saying some people plateau at a certain point enough to get work, and then they really stop trying after that. They sort of freeze there for 10 years or so.
Do you think it's just because it's so damn hard? They're just like, okay, this is hammering checks now.
Oh, that's part of it, and the vindication of being, of actually having the work and stuff is like, so that's enough for some people. They just
the validation of the ego.
Yeah. There's a gag panel. It's online, and it's this guy. He's talking to an art director, and the art director says, "We'll do it like this," and the guy just goes, sits down in the chair and draws it. And he says, "How much?" And he said, $5,000. And he said, "That took you 10 minutes." He said, "Yeah, but it took me 10 years to learn how to do this in 10 minutes."
Yeah, it's like the old Chinese story where it's like the emperor gets the most famous artist in there and to draw a perfect circle, and he comes in and the old wise artist draws like a perfect circle, and he's like, I waited all this time and it took you just a moment to draw 10 seconds to draw the circle. He's like, no, it took me 60 years to learn how to draw the perfect circle.
Yeah, this is the damnable thing about it. Yeah, you take tens of thousands of hours learning how to do this when everybody told you don't do it, it's not worth it, give a real job, do this, all this stuff. You fight this stuff for years, but you're dedicated and you want to do it. And then you walk into an office and some fuzz face, like I was saying, who doesn't know who Will Eisner is, turns your shit down.
Yeah, or tells you this would look a lot better if Picard's left cheekbone moved 1 micron to the left.
Right.
You're just like, go fist yourself, dummy.
Well, exactly. One of the raps on you when you read from the other guy from some of the other artists who are fans of yours is that you almost appeared on the scene fully formed, in the sense that your prodigal
skill set almost.
Yeah, your talent in the sense that you were able to really project what was in your mind onto the paper without any sort of interference or work. Whereas a lot of these guys, I think it was Blevins that was a Blevins quote. He was talking about your talent.
Oh, that's nice of Brett. Brett's a great guy. I haven't talked to him in a few years now, but yeah, that's really nice.
I think he followed you up on Vigilante or something like that.
He did the last 3 pages. That's a whole nightmare story I could tell you about. Brett, yeah, well, DC stopped paying me. They stopped paying me. They were.
Was Jim Kruger in charge of paychecks?
No.
Okay.
God damn it. No, it was. No, they tricked me into this insurance thing, and I was paying insurance, I thought, for like 2 years, and we never had to use it, fortunately, because it wasn't available. They said they were changing carriers, whatever, I don't know. But then they said I didn't pay enough in the previous year, so they started docking my pay. Man, it was $1,000 a check. I was like, holy shit! It was pretty unfortunate. Yeah, it was shipwrecked us. I mean, I was already in a bad marriage. Big surprise, but it was
that was just icing on the cake there, then, huh?
Yeah, and then they kept calling me, get me to finish the book, and I said I can't work for free. I talked to everybody. I talked to Archie. I talked to Chiarello. I talked to Jeannie Fong, who was in charge of the insurance crap then. I could not get a response or help from anybody in that building. Like nowadays, I'd get in a fucking plane to be there Monday morning in their office until they fucking either give my money back or my insurance. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, nowadays I'm way different. I take way less shit than I used. I'll still eat a shit burger if I'm a hired hand, but I still take. Once you kind of go past a certain threshold, it's now fist fighting time. And
that's the way it is now. Some of these young guys are real good about that. Tom Coker is a good pal of mine, a great artist. He
one of my all-time favorites, man. I've always been too sheepish to. Like my dealer's like, hey, he's willing to trade art with you, and I didn't even have enough nerve to write him. He's just one of those guys, He's
a sweetheart. He slept on my couch before. I took him around LA and introduced him to a bunch of directors and producers and shit like that in animation when he came down there looking for work.
He's so good.
Tom, and he's a great guy too, man. He's really a sweetheart.
Did you ever have? Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
right.
Did you ever have like?
You don't have to
There's
call me
certain
sir.
people. It just makes me feel more comfortable if you don't mind.
Sure. I guess. Okay.
I'll just. Well, what would you like me to call you? I'm not trying to butter you up. It's just
Call me
how I
Tony.
speak.
No, just call me Tony. That's good.
I'll call you Tony.
Yeah.
Sir Tony.
Sir Tony. Yeah.
So
Call me Mr. Tony.
Mr. Tony. To you, buddy.
I find that certain people I have trouble talking to just because the amount of respect I have them. That kid comes out in me, that kind of energy you had that was like almost like mystical, or they were almost inhuman. They weren't the same person as you, or like gods on Olympus. And then there's other people that are like famous that I don't even want to shit. I couldn't give a shit if they just fell off a cliff right in front of me and I'd just keep walking.
Right.
So, but man, there's just certain people that I don't get fearful, but I get nervous that I like them so much. I don't want that sheen to go, because you know how it is working with your heroes or meeting them, and you just see, okay, this person's a bag of shit, or they're boring. That's the worst one. When you meet creators that you love and they're just the worst conversationalists, you're like, oh yeah, what's going on in there? I liked you so much and you're just kind of a doof.
Yeah, that happens to me now with a lot of young guys. When I talk to them, it's like, it's no impression at all. It's like, that's okay with me. I'm not looking for it. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I get it. It's just an observation. But don't you have something to say? You're a fucking artist, man.
Yeah, and I'm kissing your ass right here, buddy. I'm letting you know how much I like your shit.
Yeah, and especially you. You have a 4-decade legacy. So people should be
legacy. I don't know if legacy is the word. I have 4 decades of notoriety in the business. So.
Well, that's part of a legacy, I suspect. But,
I suspect.
People make mistakes, and then sometimes it was handled right, sometimes it's handled wrong. It all gets clumped together, right?
Right.
In the end, and you're somewhere. The truth is somewhere in between, usually. And but anyways, you piss off comic book people. Who cares? There's a special place in hell for people that make comic books.
Oh man, and especially the guys that want to fight about it and get offended and stuff. Because everybody, I mean, I've seen so many feuds and they're never fixed up, man. It's just like these guys just like hold on to shit forever. The egos are just too involved. It's
welcome
like
to artists, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at me. I'm still bitching at Jim Kruger, though I can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
I'd still be, if I talked to him, I'm like, hey, is that check still in the mail? I'd still be holding on to it. It's probably around like $500 or $1,000 he owes me, and I'm still pissy.
Oh gosh.
It's not even that much in the reality of things, is what I'm saying. But being a pissy pants loser of an artist, it's always on my mind when that name comes up. Dude, that was 20 years ago, and I still can't let go of it.
Oh, really? Geez, that's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, so all these people I'm making fun of, I'm just as fucking guilty, everyone. Not just I do it with more style. I'm really good looking. That's what JC says.
I had done some web development for a big wheel at the art museum. We have a local art museum here that's pretty well funded, and I did some web development for them, and they just were refusing to pay me for the work I had done. And their guy, who was running things, was a lawyer, and so he was sort of the go-between and was giving me the runaround. I said, "Well, you're still at the same address over there, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why don't you look around the office?" I said, "Pick out a computer and a big screen TV, and this guy will be over there in 20 minutes. Pick it up, and I'll just take those, and you won't have to pay me any money." And he was like, "What?" I said, "I'll be over." I said, "You just get the equipment ready. I'll just take those as trade instead of the money." And he was like, "Let me call you back."
That's good.
I had the money fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's really good.
I'm going to take a pee break, guys. I didn't eat lunch today, and I've had about 5 cups of coffee. So just give me 2 minutes, okay?
You can take a 2-minute pee. That's impressive, man. Aren't you like 47?
Coffee still burns through me. It's 3 in the morning pisses that you're like, come on, buddy.
By the way, that Mignola inking job is coming out. It's very Mignola.
Well, it's his pencils. I'll tell you what, if Mignola ever wants to team up, I could fucking murder a book if he was penciling it. I studied this guy like I don't think there's a person on planet Earth that studied Mignola more than me when it came down to it. I'm sure a lot of people will claim that, but
Ryan Sook has got about 18
maybe
more hours.
Sook. You're probably right. Sook's a wonderful guy too. Let me whiz real quick, guys. Sorry.
Sure. No problem.
I forgot to bring my pea jar.
That's the one with the pickles floating in it? Is that the one with the pickles floating in it? Yeah.
Yes, that's how we get the good brine out.
Tony, I noticed you handle your pencil the way the all of the classic artists do. You know,
Right.
the art, when you go to art school, they make you hold your pencil like that.
Right. Well, go ahead.
I've noticed not all pros do that.
No, I do it because it's the way Neil draws. I've watched him draw, and I was knocked out at 19 years old. I was watching him draw, and he was like so facile and just smooth, effortlessly, like doing all this wonderful figure work and compositions and everything. And it was like I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. And what's really cool about it is you get on it when it takes a little more work because you can throw your elbow into it.
Yes,
which is cool for big drawing, or dramatic drawing, dramatic images and compositions, but you can also, once you fine tune it a little bit, you can get pretty good detail just with the you can turn it on its point, or you can lay it down and knock in a big fat black on the image, and it's instead of coloring it all in somehow like this, like that, but this is what I would do,
Yeah, I watched Neil did a tutorial about penciling one time, and that was one of the big points that he made. He said the reason he's in his 80s and he can still blast out, a page, two, 3 pages a day, even sometimes, is that he doesn't, he's not working that hand and he's not working that joint, that finger. It's
right.
all of that motion is coming from the back shoulder and from his back, which requires almost no effort when you're just moving a little pencil around.
I never thought of that. That's actually very true. I just know it's easier for me. It's really comfortable once you decide to do it. It takes a little time to break in, but yeah.
Well, poor Neil just had a bad case of sepsis. They thought he was going to drop dead.
What do you do? Go to a doctor's office or a hospital and get it? That's what happens a lot of times.
I don't know how it happened, but I follow him on social media. He does quite a few videos on Facebook and around on the web. And all of a sudden one day I knew he had been missing for a while, and then he showed up, and he's always got that dark brown hair, and all of a sudden he showed up looking a lot more slender, and his hair was gray all of a sudden, and he looked really sort of drawn, and he told this story of getting sepsis.
Yeah, it's no laughing matter.
And he's not a small guy. I mean, Neil's probably, pushing 300 pounds.
Oh, yeah, he's as big as his presence right now, I would say.
Yeah, well, he's not 300 pounds anymore. I mean, he's dropped a lot of weight since that went down. But he's been in a wheelchair, and he's just trying to get himself better. And
is he getting better?
Damn, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's been kind of a recent development for old Neil, but he's still out there doing his thing. He's still got energy, and he's been hitting the gym, trying to get back into shape. And
he's indomitable. He's indomitable. That guy has tremendous energy. I used to stay up all night at Continuity, and he would talk energetically all night. I mean, it was crazy experience. It was like an army barracks experience, There was all kinds of people drawing on the walls, all kinds of crazy stuff.
So cool.
Yeah, and it was like one of the first times I walked in, there was a stack of stuff that was like 1.5 feet high. And it's just sitting in a corner. And I noticed it a couple of times when I was there. And I finally walked over to look at it. And it was a mixture of stuff, but there were at least a half a dozen of those Tarzan watercolor covers he did. Just sitting there, not even filed or stuck away someplace safe, man. It was like, wow, crazy.
Do you do that too? That you create these masterpieces, and then before you know it, I'll have like wheel tracks on it. It's like I almost don't even give a shit once it's made.
Yeah, paw prints and stuff like that for my dog.
Yeah, it's snot, body fluid, and that JC wasn't even in a room. There's body fluid on it.
My DNA is easy for the cops to get if they ever need it. Yeah.
Yeah, the FBI can track me through my Aquaman work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil is still prolific. I mean, Neil, I think he's in his 80s, and
That'd be about right.
he just did a Fantastic Four run.
Wild.
I mean, he's meanwhile he's doing auctions, once or twice a week on Facebook where he does he'll draw 24 headshots, of either Hollywood actors as superheroes or Laurel and Hardy or there's always half a dozen Batman profiles in there, and he sells them at $200 or $300 a pop.
Good for him. Neil was always a moneymaker. I mean, I never worked with him. I never worked on any of his commercial work, but he was in his commercial work alone. He was making well over $1,000 a night working in the 70s. So he's paid really well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's no joke right there, man.
No, it is not.
Neil's got overhead, man. Neil, to keep that continuity office open, it's $20,000 a month.
Wow.
So he's got to be blasting out work at a high speed. And who else is? I mean, I don't know who else is over there. I mean, Neil is the talent. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't know. He's always got some. He usually got some pretty good assistants. Kids are coming along. He's working with and stuff like that. So he had assistants. He had sometimes up to a half a dozen, depending on the job and the deadline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Classic style then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of he would have people rough out scenes, and then he would tune them up and ink them.
Awesome.
Stuff at least laid out. Yeah, he had a great machine going. Pretty cool. But anyway, I was around all this furious, and I could barely finish a comic book page at that point. I mean, I was still learning how to tell a story, how to pace things and stuff like that. It wasn't what the word. It didn't come naturally. I had to study my ass off to do any of that stuff. Neil was a big part of that early on.
It's amazing.
Oh, go.
So many of your contemporaries just, they attest to the fact that you were just so fully formed when you showed up. You just were, it was as though you just had the
prodigal almost.
The drawings just fell out of your hand.
Well, it was a glorious result of a misspent youth, because I spent all my youth, all my high school years, everything like just drawing and drawing and drawing, So I think my drawing was probably solid, but the storytelling in comics and stuff like that was a whole different study. It's completely different. It's one thing to know how to draw, another thing to know how to tell a story.
Yeah, and that's one thing I have a problem with comics nowadays. Nobody's learning storytelling. They're just ripping off the asshole in front of them.
Yeah, that's it. The top 6 guys in the business get aped, constantly. But
and lots of times the top guys suck butts at storytelling. They just are good at a pinup and a little bit of serendipity and cronyism, and now they're as popular as anybody ever, as opposed to Corbin, where sorry, go sir.
I was gonna say full figure and costume as often as you can get it, on the page.
Yeah.
They scope their pages around that. I mean, seen whole issues. They're nothing but splash pages. The characters charging, this looked like con sketches, but they were splash pages.
It must be infuriating as somebody very talented to watch the industry go from people of a certain ilk of skill sets. And there's always been garbage humans, just garbage talent in any field, but that shouldn't be there. But comic books, I mean, to your point, there's very few people like Will Eisner that really kind of developed a philosophy of storytelling and then implemented it in an astounding way in comic books. And nowadays it just seems like who can draw the best Spider-Man. Like when the new Spider-Man movie comes out, who's drawing the cool Spider-Man fan art? And it's just
how much further can you get Spider-Man's ankles over his head than he does? And then the last guy,
I judge all my things by how far their ankles go over their head. But that being said, it works for Spider-Man too, right?
Yeah, I guess so, because he keeps doing it. It's fascinating. It's like limbo, playing limbo. You got how low can you go?
it's ankle head limbo.
Ankle head limbo, yeah. And it's like, I always go with the traditional, like the early Ditko stuff. I'm drawing Spider-Man for the most part. I mean, I'll splay his fingers and put him in like strange, stretchy poses and stuff. But I try to look at that first 30 issues that Steve Ditko did, I think, are unmatched as far as anybody on the regular book. His stuff, especially the really early issues, first 10, 15, man, oh man, he was really reaching.
I think I brought up this a little bit last time, didn't I, JC? Whereas, like, it just, his costume doesn't make sense, but it's, when done right, it's so beautiful and so perfect.
Yeah.
That it's like no other superhero character. Shouldn't make sense, but does.
It's pretty complex because once you start trying to get those webs going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's the learning curve of Spider-Man, right?
Oh, man, I did some drawings. And I was like, this looks fucked. What happened to it? You know, and then I saw Marie Severin do it on purpose in brand ink. She was making fun. Apparently, I'm not the only one, but she did it on purpose for a gag because they probably get a lot of fan art like that.
Yeah, the funniest is when you see pros putting the webbing on his like face the wrong direction and stuff. I'm like, come on now. Just study 5 minutes, you know, or 2 minutes.
Learn something about the I have problems knowing what a pro is these days myself. I don't know. There's just so many slummers from Hollywood and stuff, you know, and there's lots of these guys who like they had fancy educations and they were exposed to, you know, they had, you know, all kinds of famous illustrators and stuff teaching seminars at their school and shit like that. And they got all these chops and skills and stuff, you know. And they would never.
I have a problem with a true lack of ability in this industry. People like say a lot of things, but they don't really know what they're talking about. You know, they bring up words like buzzwords like storytelling, pacing, and things like that. And you start talking to them, you're like, oh, you've just heard other people talk about this.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of repeating it. And
yeah.
That makes me mad because it takes. I want to talk to other pros about this medium, and often I just find them myopic and boring as fuck. And I'm like, you're a professional artist and boring? How is that possible?
Yeah,
you know,
they really don't have much. They're not much depth. You know.
Well, there was a guy whose comics were big in the 80s, and he teaches classes on storytelling now. And, you know, I'm not the most discerning comic book reader, but I know which comic books I like to read twice. Like, if I pick up a comic book and I say, gee, I'd like to read that one again, that means it's probably a story that's been told pretty well.
Yeah.
And the guy who's teaching the storytelling class, I can't even read one of his comic books once.
Welcome to comics.
Yep. Pretty much
it's everybody likes to think they know what they're doing, but they've never really studied it or anything. You know, they're just oh, sorry.
No, you should apply to be an editor. That's perfect.
There you go. You can sit in the war room and talk about what we should do with Superman's alternate universe version of Superman that he wears his cape like this and sometimes scowls.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then they get to say, I told him that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I'm the reason that. Yeah, and then they go off and work for People magazines.
I've seen it again and again. They're in comics just for 5 minutes, you know, just to do one stupid thing.
That's why I don't mind about talking shit about editors. As long one, it's true, and I'm not being mean or making anything up. But two, they're going to be gone in three weeks, anyways.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Get out of here, dummy. Get out of here. I don't care about your thoughts on Nightwing's legacy.
Yeah, that classic character. Yeah.
Tony, you got to work with James Robinson on Vigilante, correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
That was a good run.
Hell of a good run.
It was. I was a single dad then, so it was a little. You know, I was late, and you know, just never let me forget that. And,
God forbid you came in a week late on.
Well, I was later than that, but I had 3 kids to take care of, mainly 2. My wife finally took her daughter. I wound up, I was, you know, really struggling, and it was not fun, and you know, nobody gives a shit about what your personal situation is. So
that's the tough part of comic books. You know, you could stub your thumb and not be able to draw that day. No one gives a fuck. You know,
it's hard.
Well, you also got to do animation, and Steve Rude had a pretty interesting quote one time when I met him in Boston. He said that the best comic book artists are either students of animation or were animators. And that was part of your background, right?
Yeah, it was actually my foreground because I'd done comics before that, but I was so sick of the way they treated me at DC and Marvel both. I just I mean, it wasn't just me. The thing is, you watch them do it to other people too. It's like slaughtering pigs in front of other pigs. That could be me or will be me next.
It's one of my favorite analogies ever.
Yeah,
there, Tony. I'm going to be using that forever.
Yeah, well, you get a little gun shy after that when you watch this stuff happen, and it's completely arbitrary. You figure out that it doesn't have anything to do with your performance. Somebody doesn't.
It's almost serendipitous, right? It's just where you are when things are happening at that moment.
Well, that's the maddening thing about combat. I do a lot of historical reading, and one of the things that drives people crazy, and they don't always put it in these terms, but you can charge a pillbox,
Yeah.
Once a month or whatever if you're on Iwo Jima, and then the next time you're standing in line to chow, you get a stray round or a piece of shrapnel down, you're crippled or dead or something. The arbitrary
literally
is really what kills you.
Yeah, an engine block can fall on your foot and you're out of the military, just.
Yeah, I know. A typewriter fall on your head. Yeah.
It's bad things happen. I know a dude that got medically discharged out of the Marines because somebody else shot his foot. Was fucking around with a rifle, and so you never know what life's going to hand you, right?
Right. I heard about this guy. I think this was in Asia, some big city in China. He was walking down the street, and a boiler from a neighboring building landed on him in the crosswalk in the street. It just hit him, but it blew up out of the basement. I guess I don't know how it got out, but it blew up, and yeah, he's on the next block. It just drops out of nowhere, bumped him off.
That's some serious bad luck, man.
That's pretty bad. Too bad he didn't buy a lottery ticket, something instead. But,
Tony, didn't you get to hang out with Toth?
One day, he was very generous. We dropped by because do you ever see that book called Dragon's Teeth? That was my really first professional job.
Yeah. What you did? You did like that space. It was like an astronaut story or something.
Yeah, it was science fiction, short story. Yeah, and it's okay. For a kid, But yeah, Mark Clegg got me into that. He published that. He's still around. Hey, Mark. But yeah, that's the first growing voyages I got. It was amazing to get paid that much money for doing shit I was doing for free, for myself. And Toth did a short story, that Ooh La La story, in the same issue. So he had Mark on the way down to San Diego. We had to stop off in LA and get and drop the artwork back off to Toth. And he entertained me for a whole afternoon. I couldn't believe it, man. 4 of us sitting there at his kitchen table. Yeah, drinking 7-Up. We had a case of 7-Up. We just drank the whole thing. It was amazing. I mean, it's weird how those things happen. You suddenly realize, fuck, I'm sitting right next to Alex.
That's wild. I've had some crazy stories, but Toth, man.
Yeah.
If there was just one dude that I had to choose to illustrate a comic book, and there's only going to be one more person, it would be Toth.
That would be him. That would be the one for me too. Yeah, he's astounding and totally dedicated to the craft and all sorts of things he worked with. I mean, he actually worked at all points of the craft: storytelling, characterization, action. Everything. It was and graphicism, and the stuff was just superbly, exquisitely drawn.
That is for certain. Everything seemed perfect, didn't it? Like the right amount of lighting, the right amount of design, the right amount of reduction, the right amount of character working.
What he called silhouetting, to cutting the forms against the background and stuff like that, make them stand out. And yeah, he was excellent, fucking everything. Yeah, but that was a treat.
I can't even imagine, man. Pretty cool. You were in that Silver Age where you had the Golden Age guys mixed with you coming up in the Silver Age. Comics, man. What a beautiful time. I wasn't there. It's easy for me to say that, but you had legit motherfuckers just in every corner rubbing shoulders.
Yeah, it was fantastic because you'd meet these guys. I mean, especially if you're in a place like Continuity, because Bernie Wrightson used to stop in there, Kaluta, Carrie Bates was around, Larry Hama. It was like all these guys that I just read their stuff or read their names in comics, and there they were, man, sitting right there in the damn office. And they
That's
were
so
just
cool.
Yeah, they go for sushi or whatever, you know. Yeah.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
So guys, Tony, would you we got the audio, we're losing a little bit of audio on this side. Would you be open to doing a second episode with us?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. This has been fun. I don't get out much, so I forget what I'm talking about half the time. That people don't, people don't get the news or history or anything else, let alone comic books. So I'm kind of like Tom Hanks on that island where he makes a friend out of a soccer ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know Zach would be just as thrilled as I would. Maybe we could do this again same time next week.
Sure.
And bust out some more drawings. Is that cool, Zach?
Yeah, and we can talk more actual dynamic history and philosophy, which I'd really like to get in with you, Tony.
Yeah. It's a shame we didn't get into it this time because I think you and I probably have a lot in common on that score.
Philosophically, I think we do have the Venn diagram overlaps a little, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is me saying a lot. You're Tony Salmons. I'm just this asshole, but
not at all. I saw your work. Well, you're in. Yeah, that's amazing stuff.
Well, I appreciate it.
Even people that don't know anything about comics look at it. Wow, this guy's really good. Because they've seen my stuff. I'm old hat.
Well, I'm gonna have to stop giving all my artwork away for free to JC. C says it's worthless, and I should just give it to him.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want this whole stuff, do you? Yeah.
That Hellboy you drew? Why don't you just stick it in the mail for me?
I deserve it. I deserve it.
Too.
I would say you do, buddy. Yeah, done me right.
Well, Tony, you have to spend 3/4 of your income goes to herpes medication, so you don't have money to buy art.
Oh my God. It's at the point now where I literally have to bathe in Herpesen just to get through the day.
Just to be able to walk?
I can't get out of bed without drinking a shot of Herpesen.
Oh, there you go.
But listen, Tony, as always, it's great to talk to you. Zach, I will see you on the other side. And guys, let's do this again next week, and we'll get in a little bit deeper on the philosophy and the fuck yous that everybody wants to hear.
Legacy.
Okay. Now you're talking my language.
All right, guys.
Tony,
right,
true honor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Zach. It was an honor for me as well. Thanks, Justin.
Talk to you soon. See you guys.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.